Soy Olga Muñoz y quiero presentaros este libro de Blanca Varela y todo debe ser mentira. Blanca Varela es una poeta nacida en Lima en 1926, una mujer que muy joven marcha a París a finales de los años 40 y allí absorbe el surrealismo, absorbe el existencialismo y así vive de una manera muy intensa su experiencia europea. Regresará pasando por Italia, donde vive una temporada y también está expuesta a la pintura, al color. Regresa al Perú y de nuevo pasa una buena época de su vida en Estados Unidos para regresar definitivamente, ahora ya sí, al Perú en los años 60. La poesía de Blanca Varela se empieza a publicar a finales de los años 50, en 1959, y su último libro se publicará en 2001. Tiene 8 poemarios publicados, ella murió en el 2009, y su poesía es una creación exigente con el lector, es una poesía dura, pero también muy iluminadora. Yo creo que es una figura imprescindible de la poesía en español del siglo XX. Es una poeta que abrió camino en muchos sentidos a la poesía escrita por mujeres en el ámbito hispánico, no solo en el Perú, y sin duda es la poeta más conocida fuera del Perú. Yo he tenido el privilegio de poder preparar esta antología, hacer la selección y prologarla, algo que para mí es verdaderamente un sueño, porque yo escribí mi tesis doctoral hace muchos años ya sobre Blanca Varela. Esta tesis doctoral fue publicada en el Perú, pero me hacía muchísima ilusión que saliera un libro sobre Blanca preparado por mí aquí en España y más aún en una editorial tan importante y tan significativa como Galaxia Gutenberg. Para terminar os quiero leer un poema de Blanca Varela. Un poema como una gran batalla me arroja en esta arena sin más enemigo que yo. Yo y el gran aire de las palabras.
I am Timothy Ryan Day, and this is my novel, Big Sky. Big Sky is a novel that deals with Tulsa race riots of 1921. It follows the character Tommy Shells, who's a rock musician from Chicago, on a trip back through St. Louis to Tulsa. And in the process, he's rediscovering a lot of his family history and his own roots and his connection to the events of Tulsa 1921. Tommy Shells, the fictional Tommy Shells, is the great-grandson of the real-life Dick Rowland, who was a shoeshine boy in Tulsa who went to the Drexler building to use the restroom and encountered Sarah Page, who was working as an elevator operator. She accused him of groping her. He was arrested. A group of white men went down to the courthouse with the plan to lynch him. A group of black men who'd returned as soldiers from World War I went to defend him. It exploded into this incredible moment of violence, which resulted in the Greenwood neighborhood, which was known as the Black Wall Street at the time, being wiped out completely. Hundreds of people died. Generations of black wealth were gone forever. And it's an open secret in Tulsa. It's something that I'd heard about as a child. I was born in Tulsa. And I returned to Tulsa throughout my life. My dad lived his entire life there. When I went back for his funeral, I decided to take some time to investigate and learn. I went down to the neighborhood, walked around. I went into the museum. I bought some books. I started reading, and that's really where the seed of this novel was planted. It was something about exploring, our shared connection to these historical moments that have said so much about that time, but also about the times that we're currently living through. And these are conversations that I feel like just have to happen, have to be brought out in whatever form possible. It's about the 100-year anniversary, which is a coincidence because it took me about 10 years to write this book. But I think that this is a moment where we need to bring this definitional moment in the history of America out into the air and discuss as much as we can. It's nice to see that this is coming up in a lot of popular culture right now. in Lovecraft territory, in The Watchmen. I think it's great that these things are being aired, and I'm glad that I could be a small part of that conversation. So I hope that you read the book, and if you do, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening for a minute, and
Invenciones y recuerdos se compone de 20 relatos que son una magnífica muestra de la obra de Luis Mateo Díez. La hibridez es la característica más destacada. Se combina el cuento y el ensayo en una misma pieza, y es difícil distinguir si se trata de uno u otro. El título del libro homenajea a Pío Baroja, porque la aventura y la invención son objetivo de diferentes protagonistas de ambos escritores. Estas ficciones gozan de un extraordinario poder imaginativo, y las palabras se convierten en poderosos soberanos. En todos los relatos hay una profunda mirada al ser humano, a los personajes extraviados o perdidos que pueblan las ciudades de sombra de las fabulaciones. Y se hace desde una perspectiva surrealista o con una visión expresionista de la realidad. Prevalecen atmósferas oníricas, misteriosas e irreales, matizadas por un tono humorístico o grotesco que se sirve de la parodia o del absurdo para lograr su propósito. El libro es representativo de esta poética. Se inicia con una serie de historias enmarcadas en el ámbito de lo fantástico o lo insólito. Por ejemplo, el inquietante protagonista del primer relato trastorna a familiares cercanos hasta el extremo de llevarlos a la desgracia. La atmósfera de rareza afecta a todos, incluso a los lectores, sorprendidos por el rumbo de los acontecimientos. Domina un ambiente cargado de presagios. Acompañan al texto unas reflexiones en primera persona sobre la melancolía, que se contrapone a la nostalgia, y de esta comparación surgen interesantes sugerencias. Valles, bosques y ríos es una narración muy distinta. Con ella concluye el libro. Simbólicamente, estos lugares se corresponden con el amparo, el misterio y la vida, y se hace hincapié en la relación entre paisaje y memoria, admitiendo la importancia de la naturaleza en la existencia humana. Al entrar en estos mundos imaginarios, disfrutamos de las historias y nos conmovemos o nos asombramos con ellas, porque representan una mirada genuina al ser humano y a la sociedad contemporánea. El lenguaje es esencial en esta literatura. Disfruten de las historias.
Hola, soy Isabel Albertos y os voy a hablar un poco del libro Pequeños grandes gestos en el arte, escrito por Francisco Llorca y editado por Alba editorial. La colección Pequeños grandes gestos está dedicado a diferentes temas. En mi caso habla de la historia del arte de Occidente. Algunos de los personajes que aparecen en el libro son, por ejemplo, Frida Kahlo, Goya, Picasso, Hilma af Klint, Clara Peters, Banksy, y son gente que ha contribuido con su trabajo a cambiar la historia del arte. Y, por ejemplo, en el libro aparecen las Guerrilla Girls, que son un grupo de mujeres que, hartas de ver cómo solamente en los museos entraba el trabajo de los hombres y la desigualdad de sexos en el mundo del arte, empezaron a manifestarse y a crear carteles irónicos y siguen en la actualidad poniéndose la máscara de gorila y manifestándose. Otro de los artistas que aparece es Francisco de Goya, y habla un poco de las pinturas negras, que al final fue un adelantado a su tiempo. La técnica que utilicé para hacer el libro, utilicé colores planos, una carta de color limitada y luego utilicé grafito para crear algunas texturas y detalles en los personajes. Y la realización de este libro me ha gustado mucho. Por un lado, porque trabajar con la editorial y con el autor ha sido un gusto y me han dado mucha libertad a la hora de crear, y luego por otro lado porque me parece que es una colección muy divertida y muy interesante y una manera muy bonita de llevar a las niñas y a los niños contenido y personajes de la historia de una manera muy, muy interesante y educativa, y a la vez visualmente muy rica. Gracias.
Hi, I'm Cary Barney, and last year I published a book called Maritxu, a love story. It's a book of poems. Maritxu is a Basque form of the name Maria, which was the name of my wife. And the book is about her, it's about our life together, her illness, her death, and the aftermath, my grief. I'm going to read a couple poems from it. The first one is called The Odds. The odds one cell would flip, go renegade, convert its neighbors, turn the body against itself, turn us from a couple with conflicts transatlantic and parental, ebbing into marital détente, to a patient and a medical adjunct, alert to glucose, platelet counts, pills, injections, dietary changes, are the same odds we'd meet, attract, love, sway each other from our planned trajectories, that I would keep you longer than expected in a country you'd been ready to escape, and follow you to one you'd leave me in, one I'd have come no closer to than Quixote in translation, where now I wander above ground, trying to keep you here a little longer with these words. And the second poem is called Annie Lennox. If you don't know who Annie Lennox is, well, she was the lead singer of the Eurythmics. You may recognize a line from one of their songs in the poem. In health, you hid the gray in a hardwood forest of tints, walnut, chestnut, mahogany, and had your thinning hair puffed out in curls and waves that never lasted anyhow. In chemo, you found your style, short, white, androgynous, no cancer scarves or wigs. You rocked it. Ángeles lit up with delight at the resemblance, and who was I to disagree? You wore it defiantly, finally indifferent to strangers' opinions, and the cruel acceleration time and tumors forced on you. The savage cost of beauty you wrote off to fate, pacing with affectless poise toward the great whatever.
Hi, I'm Timothy Ryan Day. This is my book, Shakespeare and the Evolution of the Human Umwelt, Adapt, Interpret, Mutate. This book is a work of literary criticism and narrative scholarship. It's an eco-critical work, and it's interested in issues of biosemiotics and actor network theory, and also of Shakespeare. I think the biggest question I usually get is what does Umwelt mean? So the Umwelt is basically the idea of all of the sort of cultural material that is evolving alongside of our biological bodies. So you could think of it as the entire cultural realm, all of our literary and scientific work, everything that we're encoding in, writing and text and passing along through the generations. So it is kind of the information of our the evolution of our intellectual landscape that's traveling in parallel to the evolution of our biological bodies. And I thought that it would be an interesting idea to see how Shakespeare was sort of imprinted on that body of intellectual ideas. The reasons being, one, I like Shakespeare a lot. Two, that Shakespeare really is kind of unparalleled in his cultural diffusion. He's only comparable to religious texts in how far the works have traveled and how often they're invoked and incited. So it seemed like it would be kind of an interesting idea to sort of perform a kind of a cultural angiogram with Shakespeare as the ink. And that's what I set out to do. So I look in this book at Shakespeare's texts, but also at texts, novels, films, plays that use Shakespeare to sort of create meaning and think about the ways that intertextuality works almost as kind of a biological organism. So there's a lot of metaphor in this book, and one of the central questions I've kind of come back to asking again and again is sort of, what is metaphor? Are these things likenesses or are they identical? It was a lot of fun to write. It was a really interesting process. I love, kind of having my radar out for appearances of Shakespeare in popular culture and literature. So that was this was a good time. I hope somebody out there reads it, and if they do, I hope they enjoy it, and I hope they have lots of questions for me. So, Shakespeare and the Evolution of the Human Umwelt, Timothy Ryan Day, thank you.
Hello everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Sarah and Isabel for organising this event to showcase some of the faculty's scholarship over the last year. This is greatly appreciated. It's very important, I think, that this is acknowledged, and thank you both to Sarah and Isabel for giving us the opportunity to say a little bit about our works. This year I published the 4th volume of my series on the Conversos and the Moriscos in late medieval Spain and beyond, and this volume was subtitled, it was dedicated to New Christian Resistance and Reform. So basically what all the contributors were looking at were the ways that New Christians, both Moriscos and the Conversos, they combated these limpieza de sangre, or these pure blood laws, which were created to marginalize them in society, to prevent them from entering positions in the church or the state. And the 12 chapters look at elements of this resistance or reform. Some just look at the Conversos as how they perhaps changed their backgrounds so that they would so that the issue of their Jewish ancestry wasn't a problem by masquerading as old Christians. Others really attempted to change the mores and the character of their society, both secular society and religious society, and the religion itself, so that it would accommodate them. And for this reason, it's not surprising that all the great reformers, religious reformers anyway, of the 16th century in Spain were from Converso backgrounds, and this includes the early Jesuits, Teresa of Avila, Juan de Avila, Luis de León, and all the great humanists as well, starting with Juan Luis Vives. So that's what this volume's about then, and I write the introduction and contribute 2 chapters, one on a Seville humanist called Juan de Mallara, and I look at his work and how he uses the work very often as an apologist really for the Jews in Spanish society. And then I also look at Converso historiographers of the 16th century in another essay, and how they try to integrate the Jews into early Spanish history, as a means also of integrating the New Christians or Conversos into a present-day society. So they are my contributions. I'm really pleased with the volume. It has a nice chunky feel to it. I think it came out very well, and it also has on the cover a painting by El Greco of John the Evangelist. So what more can you want?
Some people have the preconception that reading is something we do alone, and that the introverted reader is a solitary and isolated type. In some ways, I suppose that's true. In a bodily sense, it certainly seems true anyway. For me, however, reading is also a bridge across time and space, allowing for connections to eras I can't physically touch, and minds that probably couldn't have so eloquently exposed themselves as they have on the page in a lifetime of conversations with those to whom they were close. I think of 400 years of people reading Shakespeare and filtering their own voices and ideas through his. I think of all the visionaries and romantics and radicals and mystics who have shaped our mental landscapes. Writing has become a parallel path of human evolution in which our ideas grow and adapt alongside our bodies. When we read, we tap into all of that. For me, reading is the most social activity, one in which we plug into the shared cultural sphere of our species and start a conversation.
La gente lee por diversos motivos, para buscarse a sí misma o para perderse, para viajar sin tener que dejar atrás el sillón o para encontrar respuestas a lo que nadie más responde. Algunos leemos para entender si fue primero el huevo o la gallina, pero hay gente que ya lo tiene claro, así que lee para aprender o para olvidar, muchas veces para no sentirse sola o con el firme propósito de que no la molesten. Otros leen porque tienen que hacerlo. Los deberes, las clases, los exámenes nos obligan. Tengo que leer esto para el lunes, dicen. O debo leer a Borges para tal clase, como si fuese una obligación, probablemente porque lo es. Algunos no quieren sentirse obligados, sino informados. Buscan algo en las letras, saber quién nos gobierna, entenderlo es otra cosa, a quién se puede votar o cuál es la capital de ese país diminuto que no conoce nadie. Si tienen espíritu práctico, puede que quieran enterarse de cómo ir de A hasta B, en lo posible sin pasar por C. Luego, al llegar a B, se hacen un selfie. Los más curiosos leen para buscar. Nadie sabe qué hay más allá de ese verbo en infinitivo, pero se especula que cosas extraordinarias. Yo he leído por todos estos motivos, y puede que por alguno más infame. La verdad es que leemos para todo, leemos por todo, leemos demasiado, pero nunca lo suficiente. Leamos más.